It was my own son who betrayed me. Ryan, my blood, my boy I raised after his mother passed, looked me straight in the eye across that Christmas dinner table, turkey steaming between us, and asked me to sell everything I'd ever built. My diners, my house, my future. $1 million to bail him out of debts he never even had the decency to admit until the candles were lit and the carols played soft on the radio. And the worst part? I thought it was just desperation talking. But that night, I learned he had something far darker planned. He figured 63 years made me soft, easy to outsmart. He couldn't have been more wrong, and he sure as hell didn't see what was coming. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. I'd driven up from Scottsdale in my old Chevy, trunk full of gifts wrapped in red paper, thinking this Christmas might finally feel like the ones Victoria loved. Snow wasn't common back home, but in Reno the streets glittered white, and Ryan's house looked like something out of a Hallmark card. Strings of lights drooping off the roof, the smell of gingerbread drifting out the front door, Nat King Cole humming from inside. For a moment, I let myself believe, but then I saw it. Ryan slipping out the back, nervously flicking a lighter, hiding cigarettes in the wreath hung on the door. He hadn't smoked in years. Natalie hated it, swore she'd leave if he brought that habit back. His hands shook, his eyes darted like a kid caught stealing cookies. And that's when it hit me. My son wasn't just hiding tobacco. He was hiding something much bigger, something that stank worse than smoke in a Christmas wreath. By the time we sat down at dinner, the glow of the tree felt more like a spotlight, exposing cracks in every word he said. I knew, deep down, that holiday cheer couldn't cover whatever storm was about to hit. And when he finally opened his mouth, what he asked for turned the whole night into ashes. The turkey had barely been carved when Ryan dropped the bomb. He didn't ease into it, no soft words, no preamble. Just, Dad, I need $1 million. The fork froze in my hand. $1 million? My diners had kept me afloat for decades, sure, but I wasn't running Wall Street. The room went quiet, except for the faint hiss of the fireplace and the clink of Natalie nervously adjusting silverware. I tried to laugh it off. Son, you've had too much eggnog. But Ryan leaned forward, face tight, eyes glassy. He laid it all out right there in front of his wife and the Christmas pudding cooling on the counter, loan sharks, that stacked higher than the gifts under the tree. Danger breathing down his neck. He said he needed me to sell everything, liquidate, throw away the life I'd spent building after Victoria died. I felt the blood drain from my face. All I can give you is $120,000. I said, steady but firm. That's what I've saved. That's it. The silence cracked like ice on a pond. Ryan slammed his fist on the table, rattling the cranberry sauce. His voice rose, sharp enough to cut through carols drifting from the old radio in the corner. That won't cut it. Dad, you don't get it. These people don't take no for an answer. Natalie jumped in, her voice trembling, begging us to stop. It's Christmas. Please, not tonight. Her eyes darted between us, as if she could patch together something already shattered. But the damage was done. Ryan pushed back his chair, muttering under his breath, storming off into the hall. The ornaments on the tree jingled when the door slammed behind him. I sat there, staring at the candle flames dwindling, the smell of roasted turkey suddenly sour in my throat. My son had just asked me to burn my life to the ground, and I realized this Christmas wasn't about family anymore. It was about survival, and I hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. That night I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was a heavy silence that comes after a storm, when you know the next one is already forming on the horizon. Around midnight, I crept downstairs, hoping a cup of tea might settle me. The tree lights blinked in the dark, red and green reflections dancing across the windows like sirens. For a second, I thought I saw Victoria's face in a glow, her smile calm and steady. And then it was gone. I wasn't alone. Ryan was in the kitchen, leaning on the counter with a bottle of beer. His eyes were softer than they'd been at dinner, his voice low. Dad, I'm sorry. I lost it back there. I shouldn't have blown up like that. He held out a second bottle, his hand almost shaking. Let's go grab a drink at O'Malley's. Like old times. Just you and me. Every instinct told me to stay put. But then again, he was still my son, and part of me wanted to believe that maybe Christmas could patch this up. So I nodded, grabbed my coat, and followed him into the cold Nevada night. Snowflakes fell in slow spirals under the street lamps, quiet as ash. O'Malley's was lit up like a snow globe, garlands across the bar, fake snow sprayed on the windows, jingle bells ringing out from a jukebox older than I was. Locals laughed, exchanged gifts in paper bags, raised glasses of cheap whiskey. For a moment, with the warmth of the room around me and the smell of pine and spilled beer, I almost let my guard down. Ryan clapped me on the back, smiling wider than I'd seen him in years. "See? We're good, Dad. Just needed to clear the air." He ordered 2 more beers, his laugh echoing through the crowded bar. But then out of the corner of my eye, I caught the bartender watching me. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And when Ryan stepped away to take a call, the man leaned over the bar, his voice a whisper sharp as broken glass. "You need to get out of here. Old man, your son didn't bring you here to make peace." The bartender's name tag read Gabriel. Fitting, I thought later, like some kind of messenger sent at the last possible moment. He leaned in close, his breath carrying the faint scent of coffee and whiskey. "Listen carefully," he said, eyes darting toward the back door where Ryan had just disappeared with his phone. "Your son hired 3 guys. Jacob, Alexander, Dylan. Paid them to make sure you don't live past Christmas." For a second, I thought it was some sick joke. But then Gabriel slid a small tablet across the bar, the screen glowing under the twinkling garland. Security footage. Ryan, just 2 nights earlier, shaking hands with 3 men in leather jackets. Money passed across the table. Ryan's voice clear as day. "It has to look like an accident. No loose ends." My throat tightened, but I forced myself to stay still, to keep my face calm as the jukebox flipped to Silent Night. Gabriel's eyes were sharp. "He thinks you'll be easy to corner. Tomorrow, while you're out shopping with him, they'll run you off the road, make it look clean." The laughter of the bar felt like it was coming from underwater. Christmas lights blurred into streaks. My son, my own flesh and blood, had written me off like an old receipt. But 63 years teach a man something, when to hold still and when to move fast. I pushed the beer aside, muttered something about the restroom, and walked slow toward the back hallway. My heart pounded like a war drum. The second the door shut behind me, I bolted, past the employees' only sign, through a storeroom stacked with candy canes and plastic wreaths. The tiny bathroom window was my only shot. I shoved it open, the icy air slapping my face, and hauled myself into the snow. The night outside was dead quiet, except for the crunch of boots. Too close, too many. I ducked behind a dumpster, breath fogging, and then I heard it. Ryan's voice, low and tense, just feet away. "Tomorrow, no mistakes." He doesn't walk away. Snow fell heavier now, the kind that muffles everything, turning the world into a stage where every sound echoes louder than it should. I crouched behind that dumpster, my breath puffing in clouds, and I could hear them clear as if they were sitting at my kitchen table. Ryan stood with those 3 men, their shadows stretching across the alley from the glow of O'Malley's neon sign. Jacob's voice was gravelly. "We run him off the road by the mall. Folks think he slid on the ice. Clean, quick." Ryan's reply cut like a knife. "I don't care how you do it. Just make sure it's finished. I need that insurance money before New Year's, or I'm a dead man too." He paused, lighting a cigarette, the ember flaring against the snow. "And if Natalie gets suspicious, handle it." My stomach turned. Natalie, sweet, nervous Natalie who still believed Christmas could fix us. She had no idea the man she married was ready to toss her into the fire if it meant buying himself another week. I gripped the cold metal edge of the dumpster until my knuckles ached. Alexander laughed, a low, cruel sound. For 150 grand, she won't be a problem. That was it. Whatever part of me still wanted to believe this was just Ryan drowning, desperate and reckless. It died right there. My son wasn't asking for help anymore. He was planning executions. Mine. Hers. The men stomped out their cigarettes and walked toward the parking lot, their voices fading into the snow. I stayed frozen, letting the cold bite through my coat, until the sound of engines growling told me they were gone. I slipped out of the alley, sticking to shadows, boots crunching softly. The Christmas lights that lined the street suddenly felt like warning flares, every bulb pulsing like a heartbeat. I had no plan, no weapon, nothing but instinct. But instinct had kept me alive this long. And as I crept back toward Ryan's house, one thought burned hotter than the December cold. If he wanted me gone by morning, I'd have to move before dawn. The drive back to Ryan's house felt like miles of black ice. My hands gripped the wheel so tight the leather squeaked, every shadow on the road looking like headlights ready to ram me into a ditch. The radio, still tuned to that all-Christmas station, played "Oh, Holy Night," but the words sounded hollow, almost mocking. When I pulled into the driveway, the house glowed warm, strings of lights, the tall spruce trees shining in the window. From the outside, it was perfect. Inside, it was a cage. I killed the engine, sat there for a moment, and thought about Victoria. She'd always said Christmas was the one time a year that proved people could change, that forgiveness was possible. But forgiveness doesn't survive betrayal. Not this deep. I slipped through the front door quietly. Natalie had left a lamp on in the hallway, probably waiting for Ryan, not me. I crept upstairs, every creak in the floorboard a reminder of how exposed I was. In the guest room, I pulled my bag from the closet, stuffing clothes back inside with shaking hands. I wasn't staying here another second. But then I thought of Natalie. She was tangled in this without even knowing it. Ryan's plan put her squarely in the crosshairs if she asked the wrong question. I couldn't leave her blind. I grabbed a pen from a nightstand and scribbled fast. "Natalie, take the car. Go to your mother's. Don't call Ryan. Don't come back. Andrew, downstairs." The stockings hung neatly on the fireplace, names stitched in gold thread. I slid the note into hers, tucked deep where only she'd find it in the morning. The sight of those stockings, symbols of family, of trust, nearly broke me. I slung the bag over my shoulder and stepped outside, the cold biting sharper than before. Snowflakes melted on my cheeks, or maybe those were tears I didn't want to admit. I climbed into the Chevy, turned the key, and let the engine rumble to life. The phone on the passenger seat lit up, Ryan's name flashing again and again. I let it ring, because if I answered, I wasn't sure whether I'd scream or say goodbye forever. The highway stretched out before me, a ribbon of black cutting through the white desert of Nevada snow. Headlights flickered in the distance, but for the most part it was just me, the Chevy's heater wheezing, and Bing Crosby crooning from the radio about a white Christmas. I almost laughed at the irony. White Christmas, red betrayal. Every few miles my phone lit up again, Ryan. First calls, then texts. "Dad, pick up? We can fix this. Don't leave like this. You're making a mistake." Each buzz made my jaw clench tighter. A mistake? No. The only mistake I'd made was thinking he was still the boy who once stayed up late with me stringing popcorn on the tree after Victoria passed. That boy was gone. I drove past the city limits, Reno's glow fading behind me. The further I got, the more the silence pressed in. My thoughts spun in circles. What was Ryan's next move when he realized I was gone? Would he come after me himself, or let his hired wolves sniff out the trail? And Natalie, would she find a note in time? The road signs blurred past, Carson City, then the long stretch south. My mind wandered back to the diners, the years I'd poured into them. They weren't just businesses. They were my life's proof that you could build something honest from nothing. Ryan wanted to burn it all down for a quick payday. That was the moment it crystallized inside me. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. But even as I gripped the wheel and whispered promises into the cold night, a shadow of doubt crept in. I was 63. No gun, no allies, no plan. Just a man with miles of road and a storm of rage. Could I really outsmart not just my son, but 3 men paid to see me buried under snow before Christmas morning? A horn blared in my rear view, snapping me out of the spiral. A pair of headlights swerved behind me. Too close, too fast. My gut twisted. Maybe I hadn't escaped at all. The headlights stayed glued to my bumper, bright and blinding, like a spotlight trying to burn a hole through me. I gripped the wheel, pulse hammering in my ears. Midnight highways in Nevada aren't forgiving. One wrong move, and you're a story in tomorrow's paper. The truck behind me revved its engine, the roar cutting through Bing Crosby's voice, still floating from a radio. I eased the Chevy into the next lane, pretending calm, but the truck swerved with me, too deliberate to be chance. My throat went dry. Ryan hadn't wasted time. He'd unleashed his hounds early. The road curved along a ridge, the kind with nothing but a flimsy guardrail between pavement and 100-foot drop. My father used to call stretches like that widowmakers. And here I was, 63, realizing that phrase wasn't just an old man's warning. It was tonight's reality. The truck bumped my rear fender. Metal screeched. My car jolted sideways. I fought the wheel, every tendon in my arm screaming. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse. 2 men in the cab, silhouettes under the dash glow. Not Ryan, but his hired wolves. Their faces were calm, focused. This was routine to them. I slammed the brakes hard. Tires screamed. Snow kicked up, and for a second the truck shot past me. I swerved right, ducking behind them, the Chevy fishtailing before I wrestled it straight. The men weren't expecting that. They jerked the wheel, headlights weaving. My palms were slick, my heart trying to pound its way out of my chest. I'd survived this long by staying sharp, by knowing when to hold ground. Tonight would be no different. I floored the gas, cut down a side exit I knew well, a forgotten service road, winding back toward the outskirts of Reno. The truck roared past the exit, missing me. Their brake lights flared too late. For the first time all night, I had a sliver of breathing room. But I knew they'd circle back. Wolves don't quit on the scent. And my own son was the one who'd set them loose. The service road was little more than cracked asphalt swallowed by weeds, the kind of road locals forgot once the interstate was built. My headlights cut through the dark, bouncing off rusted signs and the skeleton of an old gas station. I pulled over, killed the engine, and sat in the silence. My hands were trembling so badly I had to press them into my thighs just to make them stop. The Chevy ticked as it cooled, the only sound besides my own ragged breathing. Somewhere out there, those men were doubling back, and Ryan was probably staring at his phone, realized his plan wasn't going as smoothly as he thought. I almost wished I could see his face when he found out his old man wasn't as easy to kill as he'd figured. I thought of Victoria again, her voice steady whenever I lost my temper. Andrew, strength isn't in how loud you shout. It's in how well you endure. She'd be disappointed I'd raised a son who thought betrayal was a shortcut to salvation. But maybe she'd understand what I felt now. Betrayal demands an answer. Snow started to fall again, soft flakes piling on the windshield, muffling the world. I leaned back in the seat, closing my eyes just long enough to hear the crunch of tires in the distance. My chest tightened. They'd found me. I killed the lights, crouched low, and slid out of the Chevy, boots sinking into snow. The cold slapped me awake. I slipped behind the skeletal pumps of the gas station, breath steady, every nerve screaming. 2 sets of headlights rolled down the service road slow, like predators stalking. The truck stopped, doors creaked open. Voices carried, Jacob, if I had to guess, barking orders. Check the car. He can't be far. Footsteps crunched closer, one pair circling toward the pumps. My heart hammered, so loud I swore they'd hear it. And in that frozen breath, crouched in the shadows, I realized this wasn't just about running anymore. It was about turning the hunt around. The crunch of boots on snow drew closer, slow and deliberate. I crouched lower behind the pump, the metal freezing against my back. My breath fogged in the air, so I pressed my scarf against my mouth, praying the vapor wouldn't give me away. One of them, broad shoulders, heavy steps, stalked toward the Chevy. The other veered off, scanning the lot with a flashlight that sliced the dark like a blade. Truck's cold, the first one muttered. His voice was deep, careless, like this was just another job. He popped the Chevy's door, rummaging inside. My pulse raced. My bag was still in there. If they found it, the note to Natalie would expose everything. I slipped one hand into my coat pocket, fingers brushing the only thing I had, a heavy metal tire iron I'd pulled from the trunk earlier. Cold, solid, honest. It wasn't much, but it could buy me time. The second man's light swung across the station ruins, closer and closer to me. My muscles tensed. 63 years or not, I'd fought harder battles than this. He stepped past the pumps, boots crunching, beam rising up toward my face. And I moved, quick, desperate. I swung the tire iron into the flashlight. Glass shattered, sparks died, and his grunt tore through the night. Before he could shout, I shoved him back, his body crashing into the snow. The iron clattered from my hands, but momentum was mine. "Alex, you good?" The one at the car yelled, footsteps pounding. I ran, not toward the road, but around the back of the station, snow kicking up behind me. My lungs burned, my legs screaming, but adrenaline kept me moving. Behind me, shouts erupted, boots hammering the ground. I slipped through a break in the fence, branches clawing at my coat, and vanished into the skeletal remains of an old trailer park. For the moment, I was invisible, but they'd know I'd fought back, and that was the first real crack in their perfect plan. The trailer park was a graveyard, rusted shells of homes, windows smashed, doors swinging in the wind. Snow had piled on sagging rooftops, muting everything but the creak of old metal. I slipped between the shadows, lungs burning, trying to stay one step ahead of the wolves on my trail. My boots left prints, sure, but the snowfall was picking up, covering my tracks bit by bit. Time, for once, was on my side. I ducked into one of the trailers, the door hanging loose on a single hinge. Inside, the air reeked of mildew and rust, but with shelter. I crouched by a broken window, watching their flashlights sweep across the park. Jacob's voice barked orders, sharp and confident. "Fan out. He's on foot. We box him in." I felt the weight of years pressing on me. Most men my age would have collapsed by now, let fate decide. But I wasn't most men. I hadn't kept my diners running through recessions and heartbreak by folding under pressure. If Ryan thought age made me weak, he was about to learn different. In the corner of the trailer, I spotted a relic left behind, an old propane tank, dented but intact. My mind started spinning. Experience teaches you one thing. The best weapon is whatever's at hand. The flashlights drew closer. Boots crunched snow just outside. I gripped the tire iron again, steadying my breath. My reflection stared back faintly in the cracked glass. Gray hair, lined face, eyes burning with something harder than fear. One of them pushed into the trailer opposite mine, his light cutting through the rot. Another circled left. They were tightening the noose. I tightened my grip on the iron, every muscle coiled. The old me, the man who just wanted peace, quiet holidays, maybe grandkids someday, he was gone. Now, I was something else entirely. And the next man who stepped through that doorway was about to find out. The door creaked first, a slow, whining sound that set every nerve on edge. A beam of light slashed through the dark trailer, landing on the peeling wallpaper. Heavy boots followed, crunching across broken glass. I held my breath, pressed tight against the wall, tire iron slick in my palm. The man muttered, "He's in here," his voice low but certain. Jacob, I realized. The leader. If I could rattle him, maybe the whole pack would stumble. He stepped deeper inside, the flashlight catching the propane tank in the corner. He barely glanced at it, too focused, too confident. That was his mistake. I swung hard, the tire iron smashing into his wrist. The flashlight flew, clattering across the floor. Jacob cursed, swinging blind, but I shoved him into the wall, every ounce of 63 years of muscle and rage driving through me. We wrestled in the dark, grunts echoing in the hollow shell of the trailer. His fists were younger, faster. Mine were older, but meaner. He lunged, knocking me back toward the propane tank. My hand landed on the valve. Instinct kicked in. I twisted hard, gas hissing out into the cold air. Jacob froze for a split second, nostrils flaring. "You're insane." "Maybe," I rasped, shoving him back with the tire iron raised. But I got nothing to lose. Boots thundered outside, his men closing in. I grabbed the fallen flashlight, flicked it toward the leaking tank, and let the sparks from the broken bulb kiss the air. A sudden whoosh lit the trailer in a blinding flash, flames licking the walls. Jacob stumbled, cursing, retreating out the door as smoke poured behind him. I dove through the opposite window, glass tearing at my coat, snow swallowing me whole. Behind me, the trailer belched fire, the crackle loud as gunfire. For the first time since this nightmare started, I'd drawn blood, not with fists, but with fear. And fear, I knew, was the one thing even wolves couldn't hide. The fire lit up the night like a second sunrise, orange flames licking at the sky, while the snow turned to steam around the wrecked trailer. I lay in the drift for a moment, chest heaving, every muscle shaking from the fight. My coat was torn, my hands raw, but I was still breathing, and Jacob wasn't chasing anymore. His shouts echoed across the park, angrier than ever. Find him. Now! Their flashlights scattered in wild arcs, cutting across the smoke. I stayed low, belly to the snow, crawling through shadows like I'd done as a kid sneaking through cornfields back in Kansas. 63 or not, muscle memory's a powerful thing. I slipped behind another trailer, heart pounding, watching as the wolves regrouped. Jacob's wrist hung limp at his side, but his fury made him dangerous. Alexander swore under his breath. Dylan scanned the horizon. They weren't laughing now. That was my first victory. Then my phone buzzed. Loud, sharp, stupid. I froze. Ryan's name glowed on the cracked screen. Again and again. Jacob's head snapped up. There! I bolted, feet pounding through the snow, lungs tearing. I sprinted toward the far end of the park. Bullets of light chased me, voices closing in. I cut through a gap in the fence, staggered across the frozen ditch, and collapsed behind a line of dead cars rusting in the weeds. My breath came in ragged gasps, steam curling upward. The phone buzzed again. I stared at Ryan's name, thumb hovering. Part of me wanted to answer, to hear his voice, to ask him why he'd sold me out. But another part knew the truth. I didn't need answers. I needed resolve. I killed the phone, shoved it deep into my coat, and let the silence return. In the distance, sirens wailed. Someone had called the fire in. Blue and red lights began to stain the horizon. The wolves would scatter now, afraid of cops sniffing too close. And in that fleeting calm, I made my choice. I wasn't running anymore. It was time to take the fight to Ryan. By dawn, I was back on the main road, the Chevy rattling like it had survived a war. My body ached in places I didn't know still existed, but my mind had never been sharper. Ryan thought I'd vanish into the night, leave him to clean up the mess with his killers. Instead, I was driving straight toward Scottsdale, toward home turf. My diners, my people, my rules. If Ryan wanted a stage, I'd choose a theater. The sun bled red across the desert horizon, casting long shadows over cacti wrapped in frost. I stopped at a roadside diner, not one of mine, but familiar all the same. Old men nursed coffee at the counter. A waitress hummed silver bells. Normal life, untouched by betrayal. For a moment, I envied them. I took a booth in the corner, ordered black coffee, and spread out the pieces of my plan on a napkin. 3 names, Jacob, Alexander, Dylan. 1 motive, Ryan. They thought they had leverage, but they underestimated me. Age doesn't weaken resolve. It hardens it. And I had something they didn't. Patience. I asked the waitress for change, fed coins into the payphone by the door. My voice was calm, steady, as I made the calls to old friends, ex-employees, people who owed me favors. Not to fight, but to watch. To whisper in the right ears. Scottsdale was my chessboard, and Ryan was walking onto it blind. When I slid back into the booth, the jukebox switched to Run, Rudolph, Run. I almost laughed at the timing. My coffee steamed, bitter and strong, fueling the fire already burning in me. Because here was the truth. Ryan thought he'd humiliated me, forced me into a corner. But soon, he'd learn what real humiliation felt like. And I was going to deliver it in front of an audience he couldn't escape. By the time Ryan rolled into Scottsdale, word had already traveled faster than his rental car. My people knew. Cooks, waitresses, even a few regulars who'd been eating my pancakes for 20 years. They were the kind of folks who could smell a rat long before the trap was sprung. All I had to do was let Ryan walk right into the spotlight. He called ahead, his voice fake smooth over the line. Dad, I just want to talk. No more fighting. Let's meet at the diner. Huh? Neutral ground. Neutral. I almost laughed. That diner was mine. Every chair, every photograph on the wall, every soul inside. If he wanted an audience, I'd give him one. When he pushed through the glass door that afternoon, the bell jingling overhead, every head turned. Ryan wore his best coat, hair slicked back, but the dark circles under his eyes told the real story. He was unraveling. I stood behind the counter, coffee pot in hand, like any other day. Dad, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Can we talk? I set the pot down, leaned on the counter. Funny thing, son, last time we talked, you asked me to sell my life for your mistakes. Then you tried to kill me. Gasps rippled through the room. A couple of old-timers muttered under their breath. Natalie's absence hung heavy, a silence everyone noticed. Ryan's jaw clenched, eyes darting at the stares burning into him. That's not. Don't bother lying. I cut him off. My voice didn't rise, but the weight in it carried across the room. People here know me. They know the truth when they hear it. And they'll remember this Christmas as the one where my son showed his face and proved what he really was. The room fell still, the humiliation searing him in front of the only crowd that mattered, my crowd. And for the first time, I saw it, the crack in his armor. But breaking him in public was only step one. The real reckoning was still to come. Night fell over Scottsdale, and with it came the kind of stillness that feels like the world holding its breath. The diner had emptied, the neon sign buzzing faint against the dark. Ryan lingered outside in the parking lot, pacing under the glow of the street lamp. He thought the shame inside had been the worst of it. He hadn't realized I'd saved the final blow for him alone. I stepped out, the desert air crisp, the scent of grease and coffee still clinging to me. Ryan spun, his face pale, eyes desperate. Dad, please, we can fix this. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. I held up my phone, thumb hovering over recording. Gabriel's footage, Ryan's own words sealing his guilt. His eyes widened as he heard his own voice. Make it look like an accident. No loose ends. The words echoed to quiet lot, bouncing off steel and glass like judgment. You wanted to erase me for cash, I said, voice low but steady. Now the whole town knows what you are. But this is just for us. Ryan stumbled back, his heel catching on the curb, almost dropping him. He raised his hands like a child caught red-handed. Don't do this, Dad. Please. I reached into my coat and pulled out the stocking. Natalie's stocking from his fireplace, the one where I'd hidden the warning. I tossed it at his chest. He caught it clumsily, staring at the stitched name, realizing what it meant. That she knew, that she was gone, that even his own wife had slipped through his fingers. You've lost your money, your wife, your name, and you'll never touch what I built. I told him. That's your inheritance, emptiness. His knees buckled, tears mixing with the desert dust. For a moment, I almost saw the boy he used to be, but the man he'd become had killed that long ago. I turned, leaving him under the dying light of the street lamp, clutching that stocking like a noose. Behind me, the Christmas station played faint from a passing car. Silent night, drifting into the cold. And that was the image burned into me forever. Not his triumph, but his ruin. My revenge wasn't blood. It was making sure he'd never escape the shadow of what he'd done. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.